The recent Netflix series Dahmer, Monster, The Jeffrey Dahmer Story, which Red Letter Media rightly points out has a weird title in order to get picked up by the algorithm. Oh, is that why? I was like, how are you supposed to even say that? Turned out to be the second most watched Netflix series of all time. Most people have praised the multi-layered performance of Evan Peters, though his Wisconsin accent is a tad strong for the actual Dahmer, and bizarrely, few other people in the show seem to have a Wisconsin accent at all. In terms of the dozen reenactments of Dahmer's story on film or TV, it is arguably the best portrayal. But many people have complained about the numerous offensive inaccuracies written into the series. This group includes the families of the victims and Lionel Dahmer himself, most of whom were not consulted by the show's creators and producers at all. Some inaccuracies were made for artistic license and to deliver a complex story within a few hour-long episodes, but other inaccuracies are horrific distortions that are an insult to the people who lived through the trauma of those times. Given the show has been seen by hundreds of millions of people worldwide, I feel it's important that we set the record straight. Number 1. Perhaps the most offensive inaccuracy from the show is that Jeffrey Dahmer did not have a long romantic relationship with his victim Anthony Hughes. They knew each other from the gay nightclub scene, and according to one person, may have had some brief sexual contact before. But depicting Hughes as developing an emotional connection and getting cuddly over the course of several weeks with his killer, the man who injected his brain with acid, left him to rot, and then dismembered him, is nothing short of disgusting. I can only imagine what his family must have thought. It is baffling why Netflix chose to include this change in the show. Yeah, that is pretty outrageous. I agree with David's disgust there.
I need a love story.
That person's family are still f***ing around. How about a little taste? Glenda Cleveland did not live next to Jeffrey Dahmer. She didn't even meet him. She lived in another building entirely. She was not there when her daughter and niece witnessed the Conorak incidents. Glenda got interviewed thereafter. She did not smell Dahmer's dissolving corpses. He did not come to her apartment and try to force her to eat a sandwich made with human meat. And she did not wake up at night listening to the sounds of Dahmer murdering people. This all takes a huge part of the runtime of the show, and it never happened. Number 3. Officers Balzarak and Gabrish were not reinstated shortly after their suspension from the police force. They were fired and fought in the courts for nearly 3 years to have their firing overturned. When they came back, Balzarak and Gabrish were not given Officer of the Year awards in a lavish ceremony attended by cheering white people. While there are plenty of valid questions about the role of police racism in preventing Dahmer's earlier detection, this is a cartoonish and shameless bit of gaslighting for the audience. Number 4. In similar vein, Milwaukee police did not make verbally abusive and racist phone calls to the Synthasamphone family in the aftermath of the discovery of Conorak's death. Number 5. Officer Munsey did not fail to arrest Dahmer with the body of Stephen Hicks in his car because he wanted to give the young kid a break. Dahmer passed the roadside sobriety test, and so Munsey fined him for the reckless driving that caused him to pull Dahmer over in the first place. Number 6. Sandra Smith was not arrested for smashing a Dahmer tourist's camera while he was taking pictures in front of the Oxford apartments. Number 7. The show strongly implies Dahmer murdered his upstairs neighbor, Dean Vaughn, when Dahmer never confessed to that and has no strong reason to omit it from 17 other murder confessions. His murder remains unsolved and his family would like people to know that. Yeah, because this is just lazy policing where they're like, or just lazy assumptions where it's like, oh no, he definitely killed him because there was a serial killer downstairs. And so it's like, you're not out there looking for the real killer. There's no reason that he would have for not admitting to this. Number 8. Judge William Gardner did not brush aside the victim statements of the Synthasamphone family because they had trouble speaking English when Gardner sentenced Dahmer for sexual assault in 1989. The family were not present at the sentencing. And finally, number 9. When Christopher Scarver murdered Jeffrey Dahmer, he did not have time to deliver an anti-racist monologue to his victim. He did not say anything to Dahmer and did not give any warning before bludgeoning him to death. The show also strongly implies that the prison guard deliberately set Dahmer up to be murdered. This is almost certainly untrue, as borne out by an official inquiry, and the prison guard with a petty dislike of Dahmer that turns murderous is 100% an invention of the show's creators.
A world of pure imagination.
Do these shows' creators not worry about legal because there's some pretty heavy stuff in here. Like, they made it up. Do they just at the beginning go, based on a true story? So it's like, yeah, it's not real, but it's also like you're using all their real names and stuff, right? You're not worried about that? It seems pretty, like, this is not cool. The stuff in there that would, if I was in these people's shoes, I would be very upset. It should be noted that the Netflix show was developed in the aftermath of the George Floyd riots of 2020, and many of the inaccuracies were there to drive home a political message about police racism in the modern day. In that regard, however, it might have been nice if the show's predominantly white creators and producers had consulted the predominantly POC families of Dahmer's victims about what message they would want to send to hundreds of millions of people. After all, unless this video also gathers hundreds of millions of views, we can hope so. It's not going to happen. The Netflix show will shape public knowledge of the Dahmer case for many years to come. Meanwhile, Netflix has announced that Monster will now become an anthology series where they will be depicting the lives of other serial killers. Let's hope they will be more faithful to the truth and more respectful to the families of the victims in the future. If not, there will always be videos like this to set the record straight.